Welcome everyone here and online. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. My name is Molly. This is Ryan and Pam. We all work in the internal audit department at Erie Insurance. I've been at Erie for 10 years, the last 2 years with internal audit. Ryan, you wanna?
I've been with Erie since May of 22, so about a year and a half.
Yeah, and I've been at Erie for 5 years. I was recruited from another insurance company. I'm the chief auditor for insurance.
Today we're going to look at the mission and role of internal audit, common misconceptions, internal audit at Erie Insurance, the audit process and competencies, and the future-focused internship. So the mission of internal audit is to enhance and protect insurance organizational value by providing independent, risk-based, and objective assurance, advice, and insight. So why is internal audit needed? Processes and companies are constantly changing, and also the risk outside and inside companies are changing all the time. So the internal audit department provides assurance by managing risks and making sure that processes are up to date to mitigate risks effectively. But what does that really mean? So what internal audit does is looks at risks, internal and external, and looks at the processes that are going on in companies and in departments specifically. And we look and see how those are functioning together. So make sure they're properly mitigating risks, and we can provide advice to really make a difference, making sure those risks are properly mitigated.
Good.
When it comes to an insurance company, risk of dying.
Okay. All right. So life insurance,
Yeah.
right? But what about the operation? So the company wants to make sure like they have enough money to pay that claim, like when that person passes away. So what kind of risk do you think a company might, I don't know, face in operating? Think of what bad things could happen.
Like a cyber attack, someone takes all of our money, we don't have enough money to pay.
Right.
Pandemic that stops people from paying.
Sure. Right. Yeah. What if like all of a sudden, like we're talking about finance and accounting, what if all of a sudden we put wrong numbers out there in financial statements and then people make decisions on those and they were wrong. And now we have reputational risk, right? So all of a sudden now we can't be trusted, or there's all kinds of crazy things. Like think of all the things that could go wrong. And so internal audit like tries to stop bad things from happening. That's what we're really talking about. So I just wanted you, because sometimes people say risk and you're like, risk of what? There's a lot of risks that could happen to the company. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thinking of I was actually going to ask everyone, does anyone have any misconceptions that they have heard about internal auditors? No, they're like, some people will say, internal auditors nitpick, like they just go through a process and say, oh, everyone's doing everything bad. But really, we're just looking at the big risk. We're not going to look at a process all the way through and say, they signed their name really sloppy on this line. Let's write them up for that. The next slide is going to show some more common misconceptions. And we also have a little video. So you guys can feel free to read those, but the video will go through all of them. And what the truth really is, some of these are true because I'm a trained accountant, but that's just happenstance. It just came with my history, but Brian's not a trained accountant, and a lot of people on our team are not.
I'm not a CPA.
Walk the plank. Internal audit misconception number 1. Corporate police? Some people see auditors as a corporate police function, and they just want to bust people and get them fired or arrested for fraudulent activity. But that's not true. Auditors strive to build relationships and establish rapport with the business areas. The goal of the recommendations derived from the audit is to help accomplish the organizational objectives and facilitate improvement, not to get people in trouble. Internal audit misconception number 2. Trained accountants? All internal auditors are trained accountants who focus solely on the financial records of the company. But That's not true. While an accounting background can be helpful for a career in internal audit, internal auditors address more than the financial information that includes fraud risks, compliance issues, and other operational issues that are not related to accounting. Internal audit staff across organizations consists of individuals with focuses on analytical, critical thinking abilities, data mining skills, business acumen, and IT skills, in addition to accounting training. Internal audit misconception number 3, nitpickers and fault finders. Internal auditors are dead set on picking apart processes and ruining the reputation of the people who do the real work. They exist to distract management from more important responsibilities. They are just there to identify issues and hold someone accountable. And they search, and they search, and they search. But that's not true. The focus of internal audit is on the major risks rather than on the nitpicking details. Audit designs the testing approach to focus on the major risks and controls of the organization. Internal audit misconception number 4. Shh, don't say a word. Don't tell audit anything unless specifically asked. The audit will go faster if excess information is not divulged and only requested specific information is provided to the auditor. But that's not true. The information reviewed during the audit could be increased if the auditor believes the client is purposely hiding information or whether important information has gone unreported. The purpose of internal auditing is to add value and improve the operations of the organization, and hiding information does not support this. Internal audit misconception number 5. Pick a target, use a checklist, repeat. Internal auditors follow a cycle in selecting their audit targets and use checklists to look at the same information each time. The internal audit department looks at the same areas each year and performs the same tests for all areas reviewed. It's the same thing over and over and over, but that's not true. Priorities of the department are determined by risk-based plans that is designed to adapt to the changing risks of the organization. Although there are some audits that must be performed yearly due to compliance and regulatory requirements.
But it does make a little bit more sense that people might think that about auditors after watching that video. Maybe, maybe not. Well, thanks for watching. I'm going to pass it over to Pam to go over some of the overview of Erie Insurance and internal audit.
So I'm going to guess that some of you either online or here haven't taken an auditing class yet. Is that correct? Anybody taken one yet? Yes. Okay, great. All right. So maybe some of it you know, and then some of it might be a little different because a lot of times auditing taught at the academic level is a little bit more external auditing, right? So focused on financial statements. But we're going to talk about internal audit, which is a much broader profession and field. And I equate it to more like consulting. So if you really like understanding, analyzing, trying to solve problems, that's really what internal audit's about. Just a high level about the company first, though. I'm assuming that some of you know what Erie Insurance, maybe some folks online don't. We're considered a super regional insurance carrier. That means we're not across the whole U.S., but we cover 12 states and the District of Columbia. We're pretty large, well-respected, super regional carrier. I'm not going to read all the details there. You can see it. But in Erie, Pennsylvania, we are the largest employer. So a lot of folks around this area know the company. Internal audit how we're structured within that organization is we actually report to the board of directors and the audit committee of the company. So we're kind of like their eyes and ears of the organization. We report actually though externally so that we can audit anything in the company. We report though administratively to the general counsel, which if you're familiar with that term, that's the top legal person in an organization is called general counsel. Currently we have about 24 folks in our department and we employ about 3 interns every year. And we'll talk about internships later as part of today's presentation. We put this quote here at the bottom as it relates to our CEO. So believe it or not, our CEO was an internal auditor. So he started out at the company in my role as the chief auditor, and he's done a lot of different things as well, but he can really look back to his time being in audit and what he took from that experience and how he's applied it going forward. So it's a pretty cool environment to work as an auditor in, when your CEO is one too. So
Come at the top, really, he sets a precedent.
absolutely. So I mentioned we audit a lot of things. So that's everything from financial and regulatory type work to operational to IT. Let me share some examples. But before I share, actually, I'm going to have Molly talk a little bit about financial and regulatory, like what she does, because she focuses in that area.
Yeah, so financial and regulatory kind of was a natural choice for me. So I shared that I was at Erie for 10 years. I started in claims when I was still here at Edinburgh. Then I went to the financial department in Erie Insurance and spent a few years there. So all that background really helped with my financial and regulatory career at internal audit. But as far as what I do, we look at regulatory audits, so things that are required, and that can be some stuff related to like Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX Mar, ring any bells, and any state level regulations and statutes. So they're really kind of 2 different beasts. So and they're also the risk level that we look at is kind of regulated. So yeah, it's I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty, but it's something that I love to do. It's near and dear to my heart because that's where I came from.
She also did an anti-money laundering audit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, that's like the 2 different beasts. So anti-money laundering is more like an operational where you look at the risk, look at the process, and we'll go into like our planning, testing and reporting steps later. But financial and regulatory kind of has that laid out for you because it is part of the regulation. We can't, even if we have a low risk in that area, we still have to do the audit on it.
Right. Ryan also works in the financial and regulatory group, but he does something completely different. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the project that I work on is called the ITGC project. That stands for Information Technology General Controls. And you'd see here that there is an information technology section of internal audit, but the project that I work on has to do with SOX Mar, kind of like what Molly was saying. And basically what I look at, we have all these in-scope applications that we take a look at that are financially relevant. And that may, if there is risk there, it could impact the financial statements. And so we have to do, I look at the applications, make sure that if someone's in there, were they approved, did they receive the right access, things like that. And we also make sure that any changes to those applications go through the proper approval process, and just make sure that any risks as far as that is concerned is mitigated. So
yeah. Now Ryan is an accounting major.
Yeah.
And how much of that did you know before you started?
How much of the ITGC?
Yeah.
Not it was all brand new.
But talk about like the learning experience a little bit too.
Yeah, and so early on, obviously, when you start a job, whether it's in insurance or anywhere, it's like, wow, what is all this stuff? All these terms, things like that. Especially when you're used to accounting and you go into more of an IT role, but over time, you get a lot more comfortable. And it has been really cool to learn more of the IT processes and learn. And what's cool about my role is that I'm looking at applications all over the company, like whether it be the financial team or it could be HR applications, things like that. And so I get to see all the different types of things that people work with. And so I gain exposure to all these different ideas. And so even though coming from accounting, I wasn't familiar with the IT stuff, the terminology or like code and, databases, things like that. I really didn't know what that meant. Now I'm so much more familiar than I was, and it's cool to see how those things kind of like supports all of the applications and the processes that make up your insurance.
Right. Very cool, very cool. And he's also working on a CPA at the same time, right? It's like both worlds, right? And that's the cool part about the group is we have a lot of fluidity of projects. So also while not working on maybe a specific project assigned to, then they also have opportunities to work on other audits and other projects too. Because we have a lot of work. So in the operational side, these are audits that, or how we run the business. So it could be anything from I'm going to audit marketing to strategy to claims to underwriting. Claims and underwriting are terms in the insurance world, right? Underwriting is like what kind of business am I going to take in, and claims is how am I going to make payments out. Okay, and then you could do HR. Construction management. I mean, it's just like so many different things we audit in the operational. It's how the business gets run. And then information technology. Our IT auditors, in addition to kind of what you would assume, they do a lot of crazy things around like cybersecurity, cloud, network, disaster recovery. And so many times when we talk to clubs or organizations, they think of auditing just from the financial perspective, but we kind of have a full, well-rounded team. And Ryan's a great example of how we really look to our team members to kind of learn different aspects of different parts of areas that we audit. So how do we figure out what we audit? So we audit, as I mentioned, a lot of things. We actually audit the entire company, but we only have 24 people, so we can't audit everything all the time. So what we have to do is we have to first say, what is our universe? What is the possibilities that we can audit? And it's the whole thing. We break them up into units. And then we look at that and say, okay, which of those units are higher risk, maybe middle of the road, moderate risk, and which ones are low? Because if they're higher risk, we may want to audit them more frequently, or when things change. So for example, when we all had to work from home at the beginning of the pandemic, right? We stopped what we were doing and we hurried up and we did audits around our technology from working from home, with like our VPN connections, all those kinds of things, right? How was the communication? What changed from a strategic perspective? So we'll adjust as we go, but we don't, it was mentioned in the video, we don't do cycle audits. We don't just say, okay, it's, every period of time, this is what we're going to do in the operational IT space. For the financial and regulatory, we have to be required to do that once a year. So the operational IT, we adjust based on this. And then we have the ability to adjust.
So Pam just explained like what the management does, how they determine what we're auditing. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the day in the life of an auditor, and Ryan's going to help me because that's what we do. So with the different experiences that I've had with the different jobs, I want to just go over real quick, like what a job in internal audit looks like. So in my claims role, we had really small tasks that would be repeated like multiple times a day. So that was kind of our like turnover. I would go in, do the exact same thing every day, day after day. I got my finance role, and that was like a monthly task. So everything would rotate like by month. So I would go in the beginning of a new month, have all these tasks to do. But internal audit is more kind of like a project-based job. So it can last 2 months, 6 months, it can last a whole year. It just depends on the risks, how detailed the process is, and whatever management is willing to give us. That's my favorite part about, not my favorite, but it's definitely my favorite job, that like the task turnover. I enjoy the project base the most because it gets like less repetitive, even though me and Ryan both look at the same things every year. I don't know. I think you would agree that it's better than like, I don't know what your work experience is, but better than like rotating.
Same thing every day.
Yeah. So some of the things that we do on a daily basis, though, is inquire, analyze, and communicate. So that is part of our every single step in the audit process, which is the planning, testing, and reporting. That's up on the screen, which we're going to go into detail on the next couple slides. But we always have to have an inquisitive mind when looking every day, even if we're doing the same test that we just, continuing the same test that we just did from the prior day. We always have to look at it with an inquisitive mind, analyze, and then communicate. I feel like is one of the most important things about internal audit. You have to build that rapport.
Okay, we're gonna jump right to internships. The slide deck will talk a little bit, like Molly said, about the day in the life. Our internal audit is part of a multitude of other departments at Erie Insurance. Most of the internship positions are up on our website, and the next slide will actually have a link you can go to, and you can also get information we have here in person as well. So what does the internship constitute? So it's a variety of challenges. You get to work like an auditor. You actually get the experience. We put you on the audit team. We also do a lot of training as well. Onboarding, what is involved, and then you have opportunities to work with other interns across the organization. We have around 100 interns every summer. You have a mentor, you have networking opportunities, you get to meet with the CEO and other executives, and then you do different events as well. So in addition to actually doing the work so you can see what it's like, you also get exposure and connections.
And the networking, I would just say, is like a huge part of it too, because you can use that reference. If you made good connections during your internship, you can use that as a reference when you're applying, even if it's not at Erie, even if it's not with the same manager. I think the networking is a huge part of the internship.
Yeah. So qualifications, you need to be a full-time student that has completed their sophomore year and have to have a minimum GPA of 3 to apply. We have 3 positions, 2 in our operational two in our operational, financial, and regulatory that we've been talking about, and then 1 in our IT specific. And these are up on our website. They're linked here, but it's also pretty easy to go out to jobs on your insurance and find them.
And for those of you who are here, there's a little business card with a QR code that'll take you right to the all the internships so you can apply. And then the pamphlet is more about your insurance.
So like for the people that are online, like different places and stuff, are these internships purely for Erie, or is there other locations?
They are purely for Erie, but if you go back one, we actually do provide relocation assistance for those who qualify. So if you're outside of the Erie area, we will help make sure you get housing and get you there.
And I'm coming up here as well, so those of you online can hear me better, but in addition to the funding that Erie Insurance can provide you, students at Penn West California have additional funding for internships that they can also access.
That's cool. There you go. And many of our interns, if they like the experience, we can sometimes keep them on as part-time if it's within their schedule. That can sometimes go on into the prior quarter. Some of our students do that. And if they are like, this is awesome, and we think they're awesome, we also bring them on full time. So,
What year is everyone in? Juniors, seniors?
I'm a senior.
I'm a senior. Okay. So if you guys are going on to your masters, you can apply for the internship, but if not, look for open roles.
And I know, like, when I was kind of applying for the internship process and looking at the information, they said that they try to hire 50% of their company-wide, at least, I don't know about our department, but they try to hire 50% of their interns to a full-time position after the internship. And so if anybody is interested, just having a role at Erie Insurance in general, an internship is a great way to start your career there. So
Joseph says, I'm pursuing a degree in computer science. Wonderful. And am primarily interested in a software internship, but I know some computer science students who have interest in this sort of thing. but aren't familiar with finance or accounting, would you be willing to train them if they want to pursue an auditing position? Yeah, absolutely. That's Pam was saying earlier, you don't have to have any finance background to really do any of the roles, but definitely not computer science. Yeah, we would welcome you. I know we set this up in the accounting club, but yeah, don't let that dissuade any computer science majors from applying. And I would just direct you probably to apply to the the internal audit IT position, probably.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
also have a full-time, if you've done IT audit work, we have some open positions as well. But that's more experience. Hey, I don't know, like if they're, they did some audit and they went back to school, you never know. But yeah, the internship opportunities, it would be the IT audit for computer science.
And there is a separate IT section. I mean, I think you can apply for more than one internship at the same time. So that, if your goal is to get to work at Erie Insurance, you can apply to either of those, or you do what I did and get like a job in claims, like part-time. I would recommend it. I worked my way up and it worked out well for me.
Yeah. And everybody caught Molly's an alum. So
Yeah.
she frequented these halls here as well, and also worked at Erie, and it's been a great add to the team to bring that experience and exposure. So that's the cool thing about audit. Because we audit the entire company, we look for people with diverse interest backgrounds and at the same time just curiosity. If you're curious and you ask lots of questions, you make a great auditor. Because that's what we do all day.
And I was told multiple times in my classes that everyone does, every company does things differently. So you just want to know overall what, what to expect. But yeah, to follow up on that question, the company that hires you will teach you exactly how that company does audits, does accounting, does for anything. If there are no last questions, please feel free to email any of us if you have any questions. And thank you, John, for getting us all set up. And hope you'll email the slides to anyone who wants to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.